Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I received an email from Kevin this week saying I should check out his local guitar shop that stocks a bunch of really cool vintage Gibsons, takes nice photography, and has an archive dating all the way back to 1999. That is insane, impressive. So he's not affiliated with them, at least that's what he's saying. And I'm not sponsored to make this video, but I clicked on this, I looked at a couple of things, and I thought, oh yeah, that's gonna make a good episode. So let's take a look. This is called Folkway Music, and right away, I do like their photo style. It reminds me of a postcard. Like, even though this is just a regular 2016 R7, nothing necessarily crazily rare, but yet they've still taken some time to make it look like something special. And all their backgrounds are a little bit different. They've got the whole black back going on. It just makes the guitars look nice. This is something I would strive to duplicate in my own unique way. Eventually, I'll get my own website up and running, and then we can start that guitar encyclopedia. I'm getting closer. Still working on it, though. But anyways, here's a cool 1963-64-ish Firebird I. These are really expensive guitars. I'm sure there's a certain charm to these things, but they are expensive for just being one pickup. But then again, it's a Firebird, it's a wrap tail piece. They're very iconic. I think most people, when they think Firebirds, they think about Johnny Winter. But a neck-through guitar, one pickup, but this one actually does look pretty darn nice. Clean condition. Oh, and they've got the original story behind it. So it was given to this guy by his sister as a high school graduation gift back in 1968. And I love it when they have the old photos. That's when it just is really special. Man, it's even labeled Jim's Firebird. Now, this one's already been sold, but I know Joe Bonamassa likes to pick those style of guitars up too. Whenever a vintage piece has a story, that's when I like picking them up. That's why sometimes you have to make your own story for the guitars. Like my old Spotlight Specials I used to buy, I would actually keep a journal within them. That way, if somebody ever picked up that guitar in the future, they would know my tale. Now, unfortunately, the collector that bought my collection that I sold a while back ago, he took the books out. He offered to send them back to me, but he never did. So you can't always keep history with guitars, but when you can, it's nice because the guitars can't talk themselves. Next up here, we have a 1966 Gibson Melody Maker. I've always liked these things. I've never had the double cut version, but the single cuts have been a lot of fun. Well, at least not the double cut in this variation. You can check out that unboxing video I did when I had a few different Melody Makers featured in one episode. I think it was like a single cut and then the version before the one that we're looking at right now, the double cut Les Paul style, before it went to what I call the freaky fish shape. Yeah, this thing's actually in really good shape for one of these things. They must have a professional polisher in-house and a professional photographer. Money well spent when you're advertising and documenting such cool pieces. The only thing I don't like about this website so far is you can't open a new tab on these photos, which makes it kind of hard to casually browse. But this is the guitar that caught my attention the most. 1977 Gibson L5 CES, listed at roughly $6,000 US. It's in stock. But if you really zoom in here, it's got the staple pickups in here, not regular P90s. You don't find that in the 70s era too much. Pretty much the only time they used those, as far as I'm aware anyways, was on the Les Paul custom reissues. I think it was, 71 to 72-ish that they did those. This is such a fantastic piece. Like, even the ebony finish is ridiculously rare for this particular model. And just finding any of these arch tops in general is kind of difficult. They're always expensive, but this one, yeah, that's nice. I was a little bit sad to find out that those pickups are non-original though. This originally had humbuckers in it, and then they put these Seymour Duncan staples in here. They said they had to add screws to the body to mount that, but otherwise they didn't have to do any additional routing. These archtop guitars look way cooler with P90 style pickups, in my opinion anyways, because you know, the P90s came before the humbuckers. Let's see, what else do they got? Looks like a Johnny A. This is one of the fancier versions that has the kind of cool inlays, that headstock that you don't find on any other model. You've got the Bigsby. I'd prefer one without it, but it is a super fancy guitar. Again, this is one of those guitars I'm just going to have to try out in person before I can actually get a real feel of how these things play and sound. But it is certainly an interesting model, and a model that always raises heads. Speaking of interesting models that turn heads, the Howard Roberts guitars. That's another one that I need to review and document. Like, they're kind of like an acoustic guitar with the way that they have the sound hole. It's very based off of like the very, very old Gibson harp guitars, you know, the ones that have so many different strings and then like a regular guitar neck on them. You can see that same oval sound hole. That's the first time I've actually realized that. And oh man, somebody even put an abalone truss rod cover on this one to match the abalone in the headstock. I never realized that was abalone. And of course, you get your floating bridge on this, just like any other high-end arch top. It looks like a maple back and sides, but I've always loved the inlays on this thing. Back in my Modern Flying V episode, I suggested that they should have used these style inlays on it. The only difference between these and the small blocks is they have these little black slits in them, but it makes it look so stylistically cool. This one's got the nicely aged knobs. Uh-oh, looks like somebody put a strap button on the side of the neck at one point in time. Kind of surprised they didn't put another one in there. Maybe they just took it off for the photos. But at least there's only one hole in the neck. And I bet Gibson was pretty proud of himself for that. Howard Roberts, artist. It all lined up perfectly. But man, that is a lot of layers of binding around that sound hole. I don't think that's a rosette. I could be wrong, but that just looks like straight up binding. And of course you have the floating humbucker on this one. These are just kind of cool models. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Nice. Geez, I did not even see that. The neck on this one, I have never seen one that heavily figured. But then again, most people never take the time to take good photos of the backside of the guitar. Like, that's got good maple wood grain back here, right? But the flame figuring on that, it's a shame this one's already sold. That would be one I would buy to document. That thing's cool. What's going on here? Double pickguard SGs. You either love these things or you don't. What makes this even more insane is it's actually a lefty. Like, did you notice that? I sure didn't. I just thought it was somebody that did the lefty. But here's a good way to tell which orientation the SG is supposed to be besides looking at your knobs. Look at your horns. The taller one tells you what style of player. So if it's taller over here, it's a righty. If it's taller over here, it's a lefty. I take great joy in ruining people's look at the SG, because every time I point this out in a video, there's always one guy that comments, "You just ruined the SG for me. I always thought the horns were symmetrical." And it's freaky. Like, you really don't realize it until you look at a left-handed one, how much larger the bass side horn is. Like, that's considerably taller. But man, I swear, I remember seeing this before. But then again, people have done the double pickguard SGs for a while. But lefties, they sell for a crazy premium. Like, this is probably a $4,000 to $5,000 guitar. The lefties like their 70s SG standards, but this thing is pretty clean, other than the pickguard. I wonder if they put it on there just to be fancy, or to cut down on scratches, or because it was converted to a righty at one point in time. But that thing is clean otherwise. The nut doesn't look like it's been slotted for anything else. Maybe it was even a custom mortar. Oh wow, despite being so clean, apparently it's been refretted. But that finish is in great shape. Normally these really do fade out. And I really appreciate the homemade case. That looks nice. It's probably pretty heavy, but the cases that came with these things stock, they didn't hold up too well over the years. Oh wow. I don't think I have ever seen a Lefty 335. That is so strange, let alone a 70s one. That had to have been a custom order. Now on the 335s, it looks like the horns are symmetrical. I was just about to ruin the 335 for myself. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one of these. It's either that or I just wasn't paying attention, but yes, this was Kalamazoo built, so it doesn't surprise me. I can't even imagine how much a lefty would pay for that. Like, it looks like our string's not quite on the saddle on that one, but I would probably say this is between like a $6,000 to $7,000 guitar in today's market, maybe even more. Geez, where are these guys getting such clean guitars? Like, it's not just that they've polished them up to make them look brand new. It's the fact that the binding hasn't aged. The headstock hasn't aged. Like, you just don't find that too often. Ah man, there's always got to be a catch on these. So this was originally a trapeze tailpiece, which makes sense for the 70s era. So they added the stop bar, and then they proceeded to not play it? What? There's a pretty cool I am in awe of the lefties that this shop has had. I can guarantee you I've never seen a lefty 1970 Gibson SG Standard. That is this silly rare. I mean, it's got some scratches, nicks, and dings, but, you know, I feel bad for lefties because they don't get to play the vintage game. And if they do, they pretty much get their choice of like 70s and beyond models. And even if they do decide to play the vintage game, their options are very slim. Like when a nice lefty vintage one shows up, generally a collector will snap it up just to have something quirky in his collection, or a dealer will get it. So to find the particular vintage limited edition model is almost impossible because sometimes they just weren't even made. This thing is pretty cool. Man, we might as well just call this Lefty's Paradise or Lefty's Torture because they can actually see these things in clean condition. Who knows how much they ended up selling them for, but man, the customs, you don't see them too often either, but they do show up often enough that you don't have to be like, oh, that's ridiculously rare. Now this one's got the double thumb wheels and an ABR1 bridge, so that likely means, ooh, in 76. Yeah, that's gotta be a Kalamazoo build with a pancake body even. That's kind of an interesting blending of specs. It's hard to tell by looking at the serial number in the decal era years to see if it was Kalamazoo or Nashville made, but judging by the ABR1 bridge, I'm betting it's Kalamazoo. Looks like they've got some mandolins, acoustic guitars. I mean, you can check them out here yourself if you'd like. I'm just pointing out the ones that make me excited. Like, nice. An ES-355 TD Mono. This is exactly what they modeled their, I think they call it the watermelon finish. I forget the official color. You can find it on Gibson's website. That's one of the Murphy aged colored ones that I'd really like to do. Phil X actually played one in his latest demo with Gibson. Let's take a quick break to listen to some of that. Speaking of Phil X, I'm really excited for his signature guitar whenever they put that out. He's a Gibson endorsed artist, but let's hope he gets something signature soon. But this thing is, yeah, that's a nice one. And oh my goodness, there it is. So I'll admit, I was wrong in my SJ200 Bob Dylan video. I always thought it was strange that it was called Player's Edition, but I never found the Collector's Edition. So apparently there were two different levels. The Players are just ridiculously expensive, but then there was this higher end version. So it looks like this one got the double pickguard still, but it has abalone inlay in it. Whoa. And then on top of that, they've got another band of binding in here, like 3 of them. That really transforms the entire look of that guitar. I don't think I've ever even seen that. It messes with your head. It's so fancy. It starts to make this look like an eye, and then all of a sudden we're in a Tool album. But yes, there were only 175 of those things made. And you remember how I was saying, it's kind of cheap that they didn't do that at Mother of Pearl when they're selling for $7,000 used now. So the collector's edition did get that. So I regret that I did not get to talk about that in that episode. I just didn't know. Oh, that's interesting. The sides look like they were made out of rosewood. And then the back almost looks like a walnut color. Oh, now I could be remembering wrong, but I'm pretty sure mine was maple. So that's actually significantly different. Cool. According to this seller, it was a Sitka spruce top with figured Indian rosewood. Okay, nice. I don't think I've ever heard of that model. Gibson Iron Mountain AJ. Is that a signature? Kind of reminds me of like the Nick Lucas Special, but a little bit different. You can take a look at all these photos here. Oh, and just for your guys' knowledge, I guess this pattern is called herringbone because it looks like a fish's bone structure if you actually look up a herring. Not too much else to talk about on that one. That is a beautiful true historic and a nicely aged 64 SG Junior. Oh, and one of the Lefty Tiki Bird Elliott Easton guitars. I know somebody out there is looking for one of those. This is a pretty nice reissue. Apparently it was in mint condition from 1997. I'm not sure how long ago they sold this thing, but wow. You know, those late 90s, early 90s historic reissues, they hit different than the modern day ones, like especially when you find a fantastically nice top. If I could find one critique for this website, I don't feel like they get enough far away shots. Like you just get a couple of nice close-ups, but then they don't show you all the other areas close up. You don't get to fully appreciate the figuring of the wood on this one. You don't get to see it in multiple angles. That's why I like to document my guitar by video. Even if the audio quality always isn't perfect, at least you can kind of see it move. It takes a lot of effort to do that though. Check that out, 1983? So Chet Atkins, this is like a solid body classical guitar. Oh, with brown binding, that looks nice. Brown and cream mixed with a cherry sunburst finish. I would have never have thought about doing that. That almost looks nice. Like, this is a bit too clowny for me. I prefer Heritage Cherry Sunburst. That's probably what that was, but it just didn't quite get the fade because, you know, it's a spruce top. It's going to look different than maple. That'd be cool to have a Les Paul custom done up like that with brown binding. I don't think I've ever seen that. I've seen the black binding, which depending on the finish works pretty well, and other ones not so much. Like, check out the Blackout series. I documented one of those right here. Oh man, we've gone so far back in their archives, they've switched which side the photo was taken. Wow, once again, that's a first for me. I don't think I've ever seen a left-handed melody maker or even thought it would have existed. Yeah, it's one of the symmetrical double cutaway ones, but the 2 pickup even? Wow, that had to have been a custom order of some sort. That's cool. Let's take a look at this 355. That's a real winner right there. Sometimes these things age to perfection, and that is the case here. Like, it still has that darker border to it, not by a lot, but man, that gold hardware with this faded walnut finish, that's pretty impressive looking. It's a stereo version as well, so people will like that. Kind of makes something else unique and interesting about it. You've got a little bit of the shrinking of the wood around the neck joint, but that's pretty common. Oh my, it's even one of the ones with the Gibson embossed pickups, so this must be a 1972. It's got the Veritone. Wow, that is nice. Like, that's something you buy and you just hold on to it. I don't care if you play it or not. That's a cool collection piece as well. It's even really, really bright red there. That's interesting. Kind of reminds me of my Brazilian Rosewood Les Paul Custom. I haven't seen one of those things show up in a long time. And of course, I always have to give a shout out to an ES-335 when I see it. Those are killer guitars. One of these days, I'll have to get around to reviewing that Scotty Moore signature that I own. What's next? Is this guy going to have a Lefty the Les Paul listed? I doubt it. I doubt that guitar exists, but maybe it does. Maybe it does. But I am surprised to see this. A wine red Pro Deluxe. You see the tobacco sunburst all the time. And I guess, yeah, you do see the red, but I just don't remember seeing a red in a long time. Like, the gold is the finish that I just haven't found for sale ever, because that's got to be the coolest finish. But the red with the maple neck, that's pretty sharp looking. And it looks like we've reached the end of their archives on their modern site, so we'll take a look at this 6869 Flying V with matching headstock even. Let's see, how many replaced parts does this one have, or how many breaks, cracks, or repairs? Yep, called it. They always have to have a headstock repair somewhere. Man, that's a shame. That's such a beautiful example otherwise. I really like the case on this one. Generally, this case is associated with the mid-70s, and they're pretty uncommon even then, but you can tell it's a Gibson one because it has the purple latches. You can check out this Les Paul Artisan review I did. The nicest Artisan I ever had one of these cases, but it didn't say Gibson on the back, so I was always kind of skeptical. It took a lot of deep searching to find out that, yeah, that's just the way that case was done. Then according to this friendly email guy, you can also look at their old website. I'm sure there's some cool stuff in here. I don't feel like looking through this, though. All right, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this shop's past inventory. I know I enjoyed seeing some of these and models I didn't even know existed in Lefty format. Maybe if you've got some time, you can sort through these and send me your favorites. All right, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.